Meet James I of Aragon, a king whose life reads more like an epic than a history book. Known as the Conqueror, his 62-year reign is one of the longest in European history, a saga of survival, conquest, and nation-building. From a boy hostage to an empire forger, his story is a testament to resilience and vision. So, how did an orphaned child rise to reshape the map of medieval Spain? Let's uncover the dramatic life of the Conqueror king. James I's journey to the throne was a trial by fire. Imagine this. As a young boy, he's handed over to his father's sworn enemy, Simon de Montfort, as a political bargaining chip. He was essentially a hostage. Then, the unthinkable happens. In 1213, his father, King Peter II, is killed in battle, fighting against the very forces holding his son captive. At just 5 years old, James was an orphan, trapped in the custody of his father's vanquisher. It seemed like the end of the line for the Aragonese crown. But fate and the Pope had other plans. After an appeal, young James was released, not to a royal court, but to the foreboding castle of Monzon, under the guardianship of the Knights Templar. This was no ordinary upbringing. Raised by this elite crusading order, he was immersed in a world of military discipline and devout piety. This unique education forged the man he would become, instilling in him the unshakable ambition that would define his reign, the Reconquista. Meanwhile, his kingdom was tearing itself apart. Ambitious nobles were carving out their own little territories, and the Crown of Aragon was becoming a kingdom in name only. By 1217, loyal nobles and the Templars had had enough. They presented the young king to the people in Zaragoza, a bold move to rally support and reclaim his birthright. His first battle wasn't against a foreign enemy, but against his own rebellious subjects. Having finally pacified his realm, and with his family's ambitions in France now impossible, James turned his gaze south, towards the sea, ready to carve out a new destiny for his kingdom. This is where James truly earns his title, the Conqueror. Blocked from expanding north into France, he pivoted, focusing the might of Aragon on the Mediterranean and the southern lands held by Moorish rulers. This strategic shift became official with the Treaty of Corbeil in 1258. James formally renounced his claims in France, establishing the Pyrenees as a permanent border. From that moment on, Aragon's destiny was tied to the sea. His first major target was the Balearic Islands. In 1229, a massive fleet set sail. The prize was Mallorca, a vital hub for Mediterranean trade. After a grueling campaign, the city fell on the last day of the year. The other islands, Mallorca and Ibiza, soon followed. This was a masterstroke. It crippled pirate activity, secured crucial trade routes, and announced the arrival of Aragon as a formidable naval power in the western Mediterranean. With the islands secured, James turned to his crowning achievement, the Kingdom of Valencia. After a major campaign culminating in the decisive Battle of the Puig, the great city of Valencia finally surrendered on September 28, 1238. This monumental victory added a vast, fertile territory to his domain and defined the southern borders of Aragon for centuries. But James's legacy wasn't just forged in battle. He was a visionary builder of institutions, a man who understood that a kingdom is held together not just by swords, but by laws and a shared culture. Beyond the battlefield, James I was a brilliant legislator and a cultural pioneer. He understood that to control the seas, you needed to control its rules. He sponsored the creation of the Libre del Consolat de Mar, or Book of the Consulate of the Sea. This wasn't just some local regulation, it was a comprehensive legal code governing every aspect of maritime trade, from contracts to shipwrecks. It was so effective and fair that it was adopted across the Mediterranean, cementing Aragonese commercial dominance for generations. He was also a champion of his own language. In an era where Latin was the language of power and official documents, James actively promoted the use of vernacular Catalan. He sponsored writers and, most importantly, chose to write his own history in it. This elevated Catalan from a simple spoken dialect to a language of literature and statecraft, fostering a unique cultural identity for his people. And that brings us to his most personal contribution, the Livre dels Faits, or Book of Deeds. This is no dry historical account. It's the first autobiography ever written by a Christian king, a raw and personal chronicle of his life, his battles, his thoughts, and his motivations. It gives us an unprecedented window into the mind of a medieval monarch. Through his conquests, his laws, and his words, James I didn't just expand his kingdom, he gave it a soul. So, what kind of man was he? Perhaps one story, from his own Book of Deeds, says it all. During a siege, he was struck in the head by a crossbow bolt. In anger, I struck the arrow so with my hand that I broke it. He then wiped the blood from his face, laughed, and carried on so his army wouldn't lose courage. That was James the Conqueror, tough, determined, and always leading from the front. After a long and extraordinary life, James fell ill and died in 1276. In his will, he divided his vast kingdom between his sons. Peter received the mainland territories of Aragon and Valencia, while James inherited the newly created kingdom of Mallorca and other possessions. This division would shape the political landscape of Spain for years to come, marking the final act in the epic reign of the Conqueror king. He was a warrior, a lawmaker, and a scholar, a true giant of the medieval age whose legacy endures to this day. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through history. If you enjoyed learning about James the Conqueror, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next adventure into the past. See you next time.